Hi everyone, my name is Suma and here's Kenneth Madden. He's based in Ireland and he gives talks on non-duality regularly. Welcome, Kenneth.
Hi, Suma, thanks.
Thank you so much for making it here today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I think some people may be interested in your background and your awakening story, how you got started as a seeker. Mainly, like, what was your motivation to start seeking?
People are definitely interested in that because they want the story. They want to know what happened. So generally they'd say, well, what happened to you, so they can apply it to themselves. And you're straight into disappointment here because nothing happens. So nothing happened here. So that's the starting point to answer that. Because otherwise there's this big narrative of Kenneth did blah 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 and went blah 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 and realized blah blah blah, and then there was an event in the mind of the person. It's like an event, like an awakening, and then there was maybe liberation. So this is this story of something that happens, and in this communication it's very clearly being communicated that this is nothing appearing to happen. So nothing happens. So there actually is no awakening or liberation or any of that.
But when there was a Kenneth, was that person involved in a story of seeking?
Everybody who feels like a person, once there's an energetic contracted sense of being an individual, then there's seeking. So it's in a way like this idea that you're a seeker and you're not is actually rubbish, really, because once you feel like a person, you're looking to not be that. Well, not the individual. The individual is just being an individual going around apparently just in a closed loop, but there's a yearning for this. There's a yearning for wholeness. So there's nobody that the yearning isn't there once they feel separate to everything. So there was always that, yeah. I mean, how strong it was, it varies very much. There's the beauty of it. There's sometimes a very intense yearning and sometimes less so. And that's the beauty, is that it's just so different. Some people, there's a sensitivity to that there's something other than the job, the blah 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 of life, the narrative of life, that you get a good job, you get your house, you get whatever it is we're being sold. There's a sensitivity that's not it, that's empty. There's sometimes a real sensitivity to that, and sometimes none at all. There's just happy to be, the big sports star, or have the good job, or drive the big car, or be the really still spiritual person. It's all the same, and it doesn't matter. It's totally irrelevant. So talking about the story of Kenneth is also totally irrelevant. It has no bearing whatsoever to what's being communicated. So yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you.
No, you're fine.
So there was no one moment where that realization happened?
There's a story of, you could say, an awakening, but there was no awakening really, because it's for nobody. I've told it several times. I could tell it 100 different ways, and it would be different each time, because it's all a story, but people want to know, well, what were you doing? And actually, unfortunately, you could say in this story there appeared to be meditation. So there was meditation. There had never been meditation, and then there was meditation for 2 days apparently, and boom, it was just, everything was just seen as it was. But in the scene was the realization that it was just, it was just this, that there was no way of approaching this. So immediately, in the sense, the logical brain, because what happens when there's a kind of let's call it awakening for the sake of calling it something. So there's me that just proceeds in a linear progression towards something in life, living their life, blah blah blah, and then there's just let's call it an awakening, where there's just, it's indescribable, but from this perspective, that's a loss of that person, that apparent person. Now, this is something that apparently happens. It's not actually a real thing that happens. And then after that, it seems to be that apparent person comes back, never the same as they were. But that's you could generally say that's a very common thing. So here it was that Kenneth was apparently back, and logically it would be, there was meditation, this indescribable thing was seen, that this just was unconditional love, or whatever word you want to use with it, and that it must be the meditation, because that's what happened. But exactly at the same time, it was seen that it couldn't be the meditation, because it's just this. And if it's just this, there's nowhere to get, and there's no way to get here, because you're already here. So in a sense, you could sum it up like that. And that's frustrating to apparent people, because they want to know, well, because really when the question comes of, well, what happened there, really that question is about, well, I want to learn from that so that I can get to where you are. I'm not anywhere, and you're not anywhere, and nobody is anywhere, because there is only energy, there is only boundlessness, there is only what appears to be, which is everything and nothing.
When that scene happened, do you think like there were like final illusions that were stopping you from seeing that illusion?
No, it has nothing. If you want to say there was this scene, there's no context in the story that is anyway relevant to, let's call it an awakening. It doesn't matter. It is actually, you could put it another way. What's being looked for has nothing to do with you, the apparent you, or how you experience yourself to be, or how you think you are, or whatever. Which is quite a shock, because when there's a person, there appears to be a person there, and there's a really lived experience of being a person, everything has to do with the way I am. Everything, really. If you honestly look at it, it's all filtered through this me. So I'm too much of one thing and not enough of another. So there's a constant working on the self. So to hear that it's nothing to do with you is, where do I go with that? So yeah, I mean, it's nothing was gained. It's actually a loss of what was only an appearance. You could put it that way. So there is no individual person. So then when that's seen by nobody, that in this, say, there was no Kenneth, it's also seen that there's no Mary or John, or there's no people anywhere. There is no separation. It's not that there's this wonderful lack of separation and then that, that's separate over there. How could there be? So there is only then what appears to happen. For no one.
Was there like a side effect of relaxation because of that?
It's a more relaxed state. It's not a state. It's a more relaxed. The apparent person, I've always kind of described it as a contraction. I love that word contraction. An apparent contracted cellular energy of me. So when that is no longer there, there is there's nobody who's more relaxed though. There's just nobody in there. And it's not, the person thinks of it and can't help but thinking of it as a positive thing and a good thing that they want to get. So therefore they're continually pushing away and rejecting what is already unconditional love, saying, I'm here, this is it. What is being looked for has never been anywhere else but what appears to be already.
Some people talk about how at the beginning it's not uncommon to experience when that the ego can come back, and some people experience that ego comes in, comes back in and out, and that happens until like.
Yeah, another way of saying that, and a lot of people are calling it mean and being. So there's a dance between mean and being.
Yeah.
I don't use the word ego really. For me, ego is just another aspect of the apparent me, really. People treat this ego thing as a real thing, that you have an ego, and it's just another facet of the apparent me. But that what was said there for me is that energy of mean and being, which there's a lot of talk about, a lot of people different. Yeah, and that's what appears to happen. But and that's it then.
So if
That's it then. There's nothing that isn't it, you see. So if there's a sense of being a separate self, that's what appears to be happening. Or if there's a sense of not being a separate self, then being a separate self, then that's what appears to be happening then.
It's kind of like everyone has to dance their own dance.
Well, there's nobody in there dancing. Nobody has to do anything. But everything is totally unique, and everything just plays out as it plays out. From the perception of a person, an apparent person, there's someone who can be liberated, and then there's other people who are not yet liberated, and they're still separate. There's no separation anywhere. So then there's a problem with, okay, you could put it this way. So for the person, there's a being. The mind can only make a state out of it, or a place to be. So you're in the being now. Oh, this chap, whatever his name is, there's only being there now, and there's now no longer any mean. So it's all just a narrative. It's all just a story. There's nobody. There is nobody. There's only just energy, aliveness, if you want to say. Yeah.
And a lot of speakers talk about energetic shift that happens. Do you think that's necessary for the scene to happen?
Nothing is necessary because nothing's happening. There's nothing necessary. There's no conditions to anything. Everything is just boundless and is and isn't.
So when someone talks about
you see again, when you say there's something necessary, it's as if that something is happening. You see, do you know what I mean? So is this? That's still back to the something happening here. So if that's necessary, something's not this. You know, yeah.
What do you have to say for people who go to some of these talks and they are waiting for something to happen? Like, for example, that could be one thing they could be waiting for, that energetic shift is a sign.
Well, funny enough, I don't have anything to say to anyone, which is you could say at the heart of the apparent communication is that there's nobody. So there's nobody seen, there's nobody recognized here as being a separate person that's talking to a separate person here. So therefore, the meetings are apparent just as everything else is, as having a cup of tea is apparent, or waiting at a bus stop is apparent. Nothing is anything more significant than anything else. But there appears to be a meeting, and then it's just that there's something appears to be said and something appears to respond. That's the perception here. So you really, like, the crux of it is that you could say that there's this yearning, this contracted, apparently this contracted sense of being a me, and there's not here, and then the questions come, but because they're not fed, like mostly at a meeting that there's questions, it's really just the me looking to be fed. It's me, tell me something I can do. You could give a 4 or 5 hour talk or a 5-day talk, and on the last day someone could you just give me something, are you sure meditation doesn't get you there? It's just so there's that energy of the me wanting to be fed, and here there's nothing feeding it. So it's like a brick wall, there's nowhere to go. So that's why, like, the questions often kind of die down, and it just can be a lot more quiet, because there is no answer. There is no answer. So it's really an energy. There's words and there's speaking, but they're not really very significant. It's just that there's an apparent energy to what's being said, which is it resonates as it resonates. So you could have one apparent person stand up and say, F you, this is BS, and out the door. And then the other, they could just be, oh my God, I can't believe it. It's just so simple. It's just so, whatever. I'm just giving 2 random examples. And there's no agenda here for one or the other, because there's nobody there. Did you see? So if there was somebody here speaking to somebody there would be an agenda for, I'm kind of making progress. If there's more people seeing this, then the person says there's a load of bullshit and leaves. because standing up and leaving is it. Do you see?
Yes.
So there's nothing that's not it. So it's stunning. It's actually stunning. There's nothing that's not it. What's been looked for has never been anything else than what already is. You can never lose it, what you've looked for. And you can never find it.
And I know this is not what you're talking about, but I think it's easy to misunderstand as a listener that the idea of no me seems like something alluring and something that is like a glorified state to reach. And I feel like sometimes these kind of talks kind of like, although they are not intending to do that, but they reinforce that idea.
But you see, people, what will be heard is what people want to hear. People extract and extrapolate what they want, the energy is to hear what they want to hear, and it's heard as it's heard. So it could be stunningly clear from this perspective, couldn't be any clearer, and the apparent person there, it's like a filter, will align what's been said with what their paradigm of the world is, and say, well, this is congruent or the same as Zen Buddhism or whatever, and that's what's happening there. So it's just heard as it's heard. The short answer is it's heard as it's heard, and that's unconditional love. It doesn't matter. Nothing matters at all. So.
But in some situation, I feel like one has to be careful, because this message could be dangerous for some, where it could create a sense of depersonalization. They may think that.
But who would that be? Who would that be created for? That's still the perception that there's someone there who's listening to it, that you have to then tailor the message to. There's nobody. It's heard as it's heard.
But it's creating that impression that having a me is kind of like an inferior thing.
But there's no, no matter how clear the communication is, it's impossible for it to be spoken about without it being seen as a carrot. You could put it that way. I think that addresses a bit more what you're asking.
Yeah.
And that was seen here immediately. Once this started being communicated here, apparently, it was immediately very, very clear that nothing can be said without it being seen as a carrot. And that's just inherent in it. No matter how much is said, there's nothing to get. This is it. But no matter what is said, it's still, because you see, there's an energy of apparently of a person who perceives then somebody else over there who has something that they want to get. That's what it comes down to. So no matter what's said, that you are already it. It's still that subject object. Once there's a person, you could say that person is the subject, and everything else is an object. Everything. And so it's impossible that once there cannot be any other way until there's nobody. And when there's nobody, it's seen there never was anybody, there never was a subject. So that once there's no subject, there's no objects. There's no radiator, there's no chair, there's no light, there's no camera. There's radiator-ing, camera-ing, light-ing. There's just energy. That's all there is. And for nobody, there's no. But the person will always hold it up as a thing that they want, because that's the whole energy of being a person. Or this non-duality thing, this no-me thing, I like the sound of that, so I'm going to work towards it. And then in their perception, there's people who have it or are not there, and people who don't, which is an illusion.
So no matter how clean the communication is, it goes to the filter of...
It doesn't matter. It does not matter at all. The only thing is, if you want to, you could simplify it that there's two communications. There is no communication, actually. There's just what appears to be happening. There's no message. There's definitely no such thing as non-duality. That's, but They're words that point towards something, but if you want to take the term non-duality, the majority, and I mean the vast majority, 99 point whatever % of it is something that speaks to a person. And then there is a clear communication that nobody is giving, that belongs to nobody, there's no authority, and that is much I'd say rarer, but yeah, rarer. It makes it sound special, but it's not special. So most of what people hear under that umbrella is just feeding the person, either explicitly by saying you can ready the self, by being meditation, directly giving prescriptions of what the person can do to not be a person, which is clearly just feeding the sense of being a person, or else more maybe more subtly than that, but could be language very, very similar to this. Actually, could be much the same terms. Doesn't appear to be given anything, but yet energetically, there's from here it's all energy. I get the sense that there's still someone there. But that's irrelevant anyway. It doesn't matter.
Do you think this is something that can be transmitted energetically?
No. If it could be transmitted, then there's a there and a here. You know, that's the whole special, not special thing of it. Say, if it was a transmission, say a satori or whatever, I mean, that's just the nonsense, the story of being. So there's this special energy and that is so seductive to the person. It is so seductive, because once there's that sense of being a me, there's this sense of inferiority and unworthiness, that there's little old me and there's this world out there. So that something comes along and says, well, I can see this little old me, there's a beautiful energy there and I can help that energy, and it's just, oh, please help me. You know, and that's, you know, of course that's obviously going to be, from this perspective, it's so obvious that the apparent person would fall for that. But satori or a transmission would imply that there's two, wouldn't it? So there's if you wanted to use the example here, that there's here and there's here, and that there could be some transmission, and then you're there then. So I'm here and now you're there, and then that's what happens. It's total nonsense. It's a narrative that goes then, and the narrative is repeated, and then it's treated like it's real, that there was a satori. But there's only a story, there was a satori. Or there is someone that's enlightened, for instance. Or there is a guru, or there is a teacher. There's no teacher, there's no guru, there's nobody who's enlightened. But then there's that narrative that goes, and it appears to be a real phenomena.
And there are so many traditions who
absolutely
support this story.
Oh yeah, endless traditions and variations of the same theme, basically, from your major religions to your more spiritual, modern day kind of spiritual psychobabble, self-help stuff. You know, it's kind of a mixture. Yeah.
My next question is a little bit, I would say, it points towards kind of like non-dual fundamentalism.
Yeah.
Like there. It may be an incorrect interpretation, but it's a lot of speakers kind of like, it sounds like they deny free will, they deny individuality, although that's not their message or anything, but that seems like a common theme among like the modern non-dual speakers. What is your take on that? Because
I don't see other non-dual speakers, and I'm not a non-dual speaker, first of all, so I'm not, so there's no interest really in what, these other, when people say, other teachers are saying, well, first of all, I'm not a teacher, and I'm not a speaker, and I'm not anything, and they're not anything either. That's just what appears to be happening. So in that sense, there's, absolutely, it's just, yeah, I mean, it's, lots of stuff, lots of things are said. If you want to talk about free will, obviously there's no free will. I mean, it's just obvious, there's no free will. And if someone says there is free will, then that's what appears to happen. From this perception, or from this whatever, not even perception, but from this that's what's happening then. So someone says, well, there is free will. Okay, well, that's what's happening then. That there's an idea that there is free will there. You see, so there's no agenda here to, oh, you need to believe there's no free will, or you need to see that there's no free will, because there can't be. You see, the whole thing falls apart when it's seen that there is nobody. So there's just words. Then people say, oh, you know, how can you say there's no free will? There is free will. Okay, that's what's happening there then. For me, there's no such thing as non-duality. Like, so people use all these terms of, I'm not even going to repeat them because they're of no interest to me, because there's no such thing as non-duality. So then when people branch off non-duality into a more fundamental, a more radical one, or this one or that one, it's just like, yeah, so. But I mean, everything that's being suggested here is abhorrent to the person, to the individual. So you could pick free will and choice, but you could pick any other aspect of it. But essentially what's being said is there's no you. So if there is a sense of being a me, and the predominant experience in the world is that there is a me, then what's being suggested is not. No, thank you. And that's generally how it goes down. It's not a popular communication. If there was a sense of, okay, so the interview started with the question of what happened there. Essentially, what happened there, and if there had been still a sense of Kenneth here that felt that something had happened, would have been very easy to put a narrative around that, write a book. Do talks, and I would envisage have quite a lot of success. There's a real thirst for that. There's a real thirst for that kind of. This is what happened to me, and then it's back to what we were saying earlier. So this is what happened to you. So this can happen to me too. So that it's a very disappointing communication.
Talking about communication, I would love to get your input on this. There seems to be some like non-dual policing going on where some like it seems like some speakers are too hung up on the words, and there is like strictness around, like, if you say this, that is trueness, if you say that, that is oneness.
Yeah, again, I have no interest in what anyone's saying at all, because I've just there's no interest here in because there is no non-dual speaker. So, I mean, most of I guess I'd always go back to what I was saying, that most of what's communicated is speaking to somebody. And there's just no interest in that. There's an energy to that's with the individual, and it's offering, something is on offer in general.
And what is your take on cause and effect?
There is no cause and effect, clearly. Cause and effect, all of them things, cause and effect, come from the sense of separation. So when there's a me, there's time and space, because there's a subject there, that there's a false center, and from that false center there is then birthed time and space, and in the collective story there is a real thing called time and space. But then when the me apparently falls away, it's seen that time, you could also say time is and isn't. But everything is and isn't. But when for the person, then the difficulty with communicating it that way also is that, so you're saying it is. But I mean, everything is and isn't. But time is a clock on a wall ticking. People think it's an independent thing called time. They think that if you boil it down, true, the cause and effect is they think that there's someone in there who is doing and having an effect on the world around them, so that they do something, it then causes something else. And in that whole narrative, it's essential that you are there as a separate individual, and something is happening in my life. When there's no my life anymore, and there's just life, if you want to use the word life, then it's obvious to no one that there's no cause and effect, there's no time. There's just what appears to be happening. And it's stunning then. It's amazing. It's totally indescribably stunning. It is beyond words completely. But when the person hears that, they feel it's stunning. It's this amazing, stunning thing, and I want that.
Yeah.
It's not stunning, and it's stunning in the sense of the simplicity of it is just wow, because it's always been there, and it is already all that is. So it's hiding in plain sight. So when it's seen, that's why there can often be a lot of laughter of, oh, it's just this, like, it's just the hum of that sound and the plant outside and a thought arising, and it is already just this.
You have talked about this in conferences and when you talk to people who are from the science world, or who are very strict about logic and rationality, what do you have to say?
See, I never have anything to say, so there's no differentiation. There's just the communication. Here it's that there's just this wow, but there's nobody in here doing that. So it's just, there's not even any meetings. Someone said to me, oh, you used to have a lot of meetings, and then you slowed down and there was no meetings for a while, and now you're back having meetings. And I said, that to me was blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's just a story. There's nobody here. There's no sense of someone here that's saying anything to anyone. There's just what appears to be happening. So when the communication arises, and then there might be someone, well, I'm a scientist and I totally disagree, and this is proven and blah blah blah. That's what appears to happen then. So from a scientific perspective, this is not good, because they live in the world of what's provable, what's real, what's measurable. The individual lives, that is the word of the individual, is what's measurable, what's objects, Yeah, subject object. You're back to subject object essentially. So, like, what's stunning here is that there's there's no agenda. So it's just, it arises when it arises, and it's heard as it's heard. You could have a whole room. You could have just absolutely, this is outrageous, and everyone get it really amused me in the beginning. I heard of people who had meetings and they didn't go well, and I couldn't understand that. Oh, I'm not going to do any more meetings. I'm going to do individual, because I understand it then quickly. Well, there's definitely someone there then, because how could it not go? It doesn't go well, and it doesn't go badly, because it doesn't go. It's just, there's just appears to be a question, and there appears to be an answer. Mostly rejected, often anger, probably more anger before. Not maybe a little bit less anger now, actually, but in this perception, but it just is. It depends, It's all just energy, you see. So.
And I understand that this can't have a proof, because again, proof would be another object.
Yeah.
But can there be something like an indirect evidence, kind of, to pointing towards?
No. It's all the time there's a person, and there's a memory here of this with Kenneth, actually, when there was that play of being Kenneth again, and that mean and being, and there was this sense of I've got to validate this is stunning, but I've got to validate it by something. And there was actually an energy of trying to validate it by getting other people that concur with it. And I mean a real uncompromising message. And there was not, they couldn't be found. But then the need to have it collaborated and held up and verified fell apart then, or fell away when the Kenneth totally fell away, apparently. Do you get what I'm saying? So that sense of needing it to be validated and to be real, what's being suggested here is all intrinsic in the sense of a me that's there. And when there's no longer a me, seeing there never was a me, and nothing needs to be validated. It's like saying, can we validate the sky is blue? Well, the sky is blue. I validate it all you want. Well, the sky is blue. You know what I mean? That's as close as I can come to it. There's no authority. Authority completely falls apart. There's no authority here whatsoever, and there's no authority anywhere else whatsoever, at all, in any way, shape or form. So there's nobody actually communicating this in a clear, uncompromising, correct way or a right way. There's actually just words and energy, that's all. And then you could differentiate it by one type of communication is feeding the energy of the person, and the other is the ruthless destroyer that doesn't feed the person and says, hello, I'm here, it's this. And it's just heard as it's heard.
When the seeing happened for you, did you feel like the words like enlightenment or liberation, they all seemed like big blown up words?
It didn't happen for me. Seeing didn't happen for me.
But those concepts like are so blown up.
And it doesn't actually happen either. So this is the trick. We'll keep coming up against this, you see, because nothing happens. So this is liberation. This is it already, and then it's in the sense of being a person. There is this thing, an experience called enlightenment or liberation, but only whilst there's a person. And when there's the energy of a person there, it's seen nothing ever happened, because this is nothing appearing to happen. From this perspective, there was no prior kind of knowledge of all things spiritual, you could say. Very fleetingly kind of maybe dipped into Buddhism and stuff, but there was no spiritual seeker here, or really even a lot of them terms didn't have any interest in them at all. So it was interesting that when Kenneth appeared to fall away and had nothing to do with it appeared to be happening, the first thing that was written or appeared to be written was, it feels like the veil has lifted. It feels like a veil has lifted. And I remember that very distinctly. There's a memory of that, it felt like a veil. And that it's interesting that when you delve into it, there's all this talk of veils, but that was the first thing that came to mind. It's like a veil. I love the description of it being like a veil, because it's like if you think about a veil, when you're looking through a veil, you're looking at everything through the veil. And if the veil is lifted, you're still looking at everything. It's the exact same. Nothing has changed in any way, shape or form, except that now there's no veil there. And that, you could describe it like that. But it's seen then, in that scene, is that there actually was never a veil. It was only an appearance. Feeling like this me who had a life was just an appearance. It was a dream. Yeah.
You have been giving these talks for a long time now. Have you noticed
apparently.
Have you noticed an increase in interest, or is it happening to more and more?
No. I mean, I've noticed an interest in non-duality, as I could see that coming for quite a while actually. Like the mindfulness thing, you could see it coming. And I remember saying to a friend that there's going to be acres of books now on mindfulness in about 2 years or so, and sure enough, boom, it's everywhere. Kind of followed on from The Power Now and all of that kind of stuff. And you could see non-duality trend in the same way. So it's just a trend. It's a trendy thing, and loads of people now say that they're not there or feel they're not there and talk about not being there. And there's a clear communication in that, and you get that sense, energetically you sense that it's clearly there is no one there. But more often than not, it's just still an energy of being someone who offers something to someone else,
who likes being no one.
Yeah, I mean the games and the narrative around it is just endless. Like there's endless types of teachers, gurus, whatever you want to call them, non-dual teachers. There's no such thing as a non-dual teacher, but then when you say that, or that said, it feels like to the person that there's something wrong with that and there's something right with the other one, which there isn't, because it's just only apparently happening anyway. There is no right or wrong. So it's not that one communication is right and the other is wrong, because it's actually not even a communication. It's just energy.
But do you feel like a lot more people are seeing this?
Nobody sees it, you see. So I know exactly what you're saying. But if it was a sense that you could, okay, not to be obtuse about it, like it's been seen more now, yeah, it's been seen more, yeah.
And at some point, would it be kind of like a basic recognition where...
No, I have no idea. It's just that there is only what appears to be happening. So the game of I am an individual, I am me, and it's my life, and I'm going to make something of it. That's what appears to be happening. I have no idea. It's not, if there was, that there would be no longer that game going on, then that's what would then appear to happen. But the person kind of treats it like as if it's somewhere to get to. Like it falls in with that narrative of kind of like we're evolving towards this and we're all awakening. But how can we all be awakening if we're not there? You know, so it's very easy. I could see how the mind would feel, oh, there's all these awakenings and all these people are popping apparently, and then it's all just going to and then there's going to be this lovely utopia of energy. It's just a story.
And it's a
story. It's a very attractive story, yeah. Yeah, totally, yeah. I mean, what the linear mind can do nothing but work in a linear fashion with it. This is not a linear, you're using time to approach eternity, if you want to put it that way. How can you use time to approach eternity? Or space to approach infinity, So it's unknowable. It's totally unknowable. It's just immediately just this.
It can go any ways, like any direction, any ways.
Yeah, and it doesn't go any ways because there's nowhere for it to go, because there is just like energy. Oh yeah, the story is just infinitely diverse and can be anything. Yeah, stunning actually. Yeah, and just is as it is. There's no.
I also wanted to ask you about this one thing, and this may be a case of misinterpretation, but when you see a lot of speakers who have similar messages and you use similar words, it's very likely for some people to wonder that and kind of like label it as like a cult message.
Yeah, again, I have no interest in what, I mean. Someone years ago said, "Oh, you're like that guy. What's his name?" And I said, "Oh, who?" And I started offering. "Oh no, that guy. Osama bin Laden. That's who you're like." I mean, people hear what they hear. People hear what they hear, and they see what they see. If there's on the outside, maybe the outside's the wrong word, but superficially, if you feel like a person and you hear this, and this communication's heard, it's very quickly labelled as whatever you want to call it, a cult, dangerous, another religion, whatever. But here, from this perception, it doesn't matter. Damn, it's perceived as it's perceived.
And it can be pursued in.
Yeah, it's heard as it's heard, and it's labelled as it's labelled. So that's what's appearing to happen. So there's no agenda. So who cares? Who is there to care even? So I mean. If there was someone here who felt like they were communicating something, there would be that kind of crafting of the message, managing the message, PRing it, the message. This isn't a cult. All of that would go on because there would be an energy of somebody who wants to mind their message. There's no message and there's no body, so boom. I mean, you could, cult. I mean, like. If you were to read, I think there's a big intelligence there, if you want to put it that way, though, and that when there's an engagement with it, it's seen that it clearly can't be a cult because you're not being told. You're not being told to do anything. You're not being offered anything whatsoever. You're not being asked to believe in anything. So there is that. I think there's increasingly, when there's an encountering with the message, there's a sense of, wow, there's really nothing on offer here. And there's an energy to that. There's a boundless energy to that. That is amazing because we're offered something continually. You step outside the door, there's an agenda coming at you. Because that's the way the story is. You're a person, I'm going to conquer you, or I'm going to be conquered by you, or I'm going to be blah, blah, blah. I'm going to use you or abuse you. Do you know, what do you offer me? Do I need to avoid you, or do you offer me something? That's the world we live in. So when there's an encounter with this message, it's it can be like, oh, there's that sense of boundlessness to it and agendalessness to it is stunning, really. Yeah.
I really like that answer, and I'm glad we are able to talk about it openly.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's no, like, there's no such thing from this perception as a silly question. Like, how could there be? A question, whatever arises, is there to be asked, and equally, there's no such thing as a really insightful and smart question, because it's all just. And you see that sometimes at the meeting, people feel that they have to ask something that's kind of incongruent with what is congruent with what they think is being said, but that's so that they think there's an energy about, I want to be perceived by the communicator as I get this. I get this, I get it, okay, that's nice. Who gets it? And there is a nice energy to that if it's something, you can't say anything wrong and you can't say anything right. So if it comes up and it's said, that's what's said, and yeah, there's a boundless freedom to the communication. Yeah.
And I understand we already talked about cause and effect. There's no cause and effect, but some viewers have talked about experiencing isolation because of seeing this. What do you have to say about it?
That's what's appearing to happen then. They could equally say they have experienced isolation because of something else. It's just a narrative, it's just a story. So there's nobody in there. That's still in the story, that there's somebody there who's been negatively affected by the message. A message. There's not even a message.
Not message, but when the scene happens.
Oh yeah, when there's maybe a scene. Yeah, I mean when there's a scene, and so if you conceive of the scene of this, that there's that is when there's nobody. So there's a dropping of an apparent me. There's no real me there at all. So there's just boom, wow, and then it appears to be that there's a kind of, the me appears to come back, like a contracted energy in the body, and then that will play out as it plays out. For some, it appears that it's torture, because it was a glimpse of an indescribable, unconditional love that then they're back trying to have, and they can never have it. You can never have what you're looking for. You can't have it because it's not a thing, and there's no you to have it. Yeah. Yeah.
Did your family or friends notice when this realization happened for you?
I can't speak. You'd have to speak to them, really. I mean, the difference initially would have been remarkable in that the interest that Kenneth had, the character, before this poem and after would have been quite stark, in that there would have been certain ways of behaving that were to do with the story of me that just totally and utterly collapsed. So the energy of someone who was a friend of that character Kenneth, who was also involved in that type of behavior, would have then seen Kenneth's changed, because the currency was no longer there to get whatever was in that. It's a meeting of needs. For any apparent relationship's a meeting of needs. So if that's not being played for that person, then, for instance, alcohol, drinking. So if the character Kenneth's not drinking, but the apparent relationship was to go drinking, then bang, Kenneth's changed. He doesn't go drinking anymore. So that agenda's not being met anymore. Do you follow what I'm saying? So then overall then that it would be unique to whoever appeared to be in a friendship or relationship. So you would get loads of different answers. Did something happen? No. And then another answer might be, well, it's just more Kenneth. It's Kenneth, he seems to be, they wouldn't, well, maybe he's in better form, or he just, whatever. Because there's kind of a relaxing maybe of the, because being a me is a contracted, agenda-led energy. Yeah. But you see, to talk about it like that, then it does feel like for the person as if something more positive happened,
Yeah.
which is not the case really. Yeah, so nothing really happened, no.
And in
Yeah.
some cases, maybe it goes in other direction. And
In some cases, yeah, there can be when there's a sense of being a person, and there's this game that goes on. So it's all games, right? So the agendas are being met or not met, and then when the agendas fall away on one side, apparently, that can be very threatening to the person that still feels there and feels like a person in a dynamic with another person. So it can be very threatening, actually. It can be very threatening, yeah. Yeah, can be. And that's what happens then, appears to happen. Yeah. See, it's very frustrating because we keep coming back to this is something that appears to happen. Appear is a very much used word. And it's very frustrating for the person because they live in a world of happenings and experiencing. So what's being said is continually trying to be understood, and it's not understandable, and it's continually tried to be obtained and gotten, and it can't be gotten. So it can be extremely frustrating for the person, the apparent person. But yet, if it can also resonate, and it is undeniable how it resonates. It's just boom. It's just wow. So you often get the two. You get like I described earlier. Say a parent person get really angry and going out of the meeting, and another parent say, "Oh my God, this is amazing." You also get it's very common, just like a sense of, I really don't like what's being said here, and yet I'm completely resonating with what's being said here. So the two things, that can happen too.
Do you get heckled at all during the meetings?
No, I have security, so anyone heckles me, they're gone, I have security, so anyone heckles or says something I don't like, I just get them out of there. I'm joking. This guy in the red, out. Yeah. You picture these big heavies, like, I don't like your question, No, I mean, again, the only way I can answer that is that there's only energy, okay, if you want to put it that way. And energy is still just a word, but there's only what appears to be. And then when there's in an apparent meeting, there appears to be, whatever appears to be is it. That's as close as I can come to that.
But it's not.
So it could be anger, and then that's it, obviously. Or it could be whatever you could throw at me and say, well, could this happen or that happen? Well, that's obviously it then, because there's no agenda here, you see. Because if there was an agenda, then there would be someone here who sees other people in the meeting, and the meeting has to go a certain way, and there's not even a meeting. So I mean, yeah, it's heard as it's heard. So sometimes it's very, very confronting. It's a very, 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 very confronting message to the person. Yeah, so in that sense, it can be quite a reaction to it, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's quite brave to speak about this subject because it can polarize some people.
If there was someone talking about it, it would be brave, yeah, but there's nobody talking about it. Yeah, oh yeah, I would tip my hat to anyone who wanted to say this, but when there's nobody there, it changes that. Because from that perception, it's this person is being brave it's just there's nobody there, so then it doesn't matter.
And the other end of that spectrum is, like, in some meetings, some people may see there is someone really special there.
Oh yeah, of course,
they may like really like put you on a pedestal.
Yeah. Sometimes I use that to get a good foot rub, someone likes to, get and wash my feet, like, and yeah, that can happen. Yeah, that can happen. when there's a sense of being a person, and then we'll go back to what we said earlier about it being a carrot. It can't not be. It's always going to be a carrot to a person. So it can be rejected, or it can be seen that there's somebody there. Like the experience of the first encounter with a clear communication was with the Open Secret, and I went to a meeting apparently, and was just the memory is so strong of being wanting to turn. Can you not hear what this gentleman is saying? He's saying there's nothing to get. He doesn't know anything you don't know. It was so funny because I almost kept was looking back at everyone, and you're not hearing what he's saying. You still think there's someone there that has something you don't have, you know, and that's it. That's what it is. That's what it feels like that. There's this when the me drops away, it's very obvious that there's nothing here that's not there, and so all that special, not special thing just completely falls away. Yeah, there's no special. There's nobody who's. How could there be anyone who's special? There's just energy, oneness. You know, but all the time there's two-ness, then there's special, not special, because there's a yearning to be whole. Yeah.
One complaint, I wouldn't say it's a complaint, but one insight some people have brought about is this could be a mind game, like for someone, like for example, if someone is in a lot of suffering and has gone through a lot, like this story may be very attractive to be to be a no-me.
Oh, completely, yeah. I mean, it's mostly taken on as another paradigm, another concept, and people say then, well, I'm no longer a me, and there's a huge actual understanding of what's been said here now. There's an enormous understanding, and there's people who can explain it as clearly as what's been said here, but there's still someone there. Yeah.
So that's
very common actually. Yeah. So I mean, that's what appears to be happening though. That's just what appears to be happening. So whatever is communicated anywhere is heard as it's heard and can be taken on as a concept, because that's what the apparent person does.
It's very interesting because I think if for some people it may be very confusing to differentiate between.
It doesn't matter though. It doesn't. They don't have to differentiate. Nobody has to do anything. If it was important that they differentiated between things, then it would mean that one is a real, true communication and the other isn't, and that one is taking them somewhere they need to go and the other was taking them. There's nowhere to go. There's just this. There's just what appears to be happening. So there's either that energy of being fed by the communication, or there's not, and there's a resonance, and it's all only apparently happening anyway. So yeah. So this is everything and nothing, and it's boundless and unknowable. It can't be known. There just is. It's just isness. Whatever. They're just words, but so what's been looked for is always what appears to be, no matter what that appears to be. But when there's a sense of being a person, it's a yearning for the positive. There's that dualism. Dualism is the person. It's the play of opposites, is the person of wanting the comfort and rejecting the discomfort. That is the dance. But it's all emanating from a sense of being a separate individual. So there's a continual, if you want to call the apparent individual a bubble, there's going to be an effort to make that as full and comfortable as possible. Yeah. And that's what appears to happen. Yeah.
And when some speakers say that there are different levels of liberation.
Yeah, they do say that, don't they? They say lots of things like, I mean, that's just what appears to be happening. And then the whatever. So, for instance, like someone says there's different levels of liberation, and an apparent person comes to me and says, Guru John says there's different levels of liberation, then that's what's happening. It's not. That's what appears to be happening then. If there was someone here who would feel, well, don't listen to Guru John, and that's wrong, and you should listen to this communication. Do you see?
Yes.
So it's all a play, it's all a dream, it's all a play of light. So it's only apparently happening anyway. So life appears to be Guru John saying there's different levels of liberation. And also life, or energy, appears to be a character, Kenneth, saying not only is there not different levels, there's not even liberation, and this is it. And then that's heard as it's heard. So that it'll resonate as it resonates. So more will go to John, and he'll have an ashram and a following, and then there's a certain interest now, and it's resonating, probably apparently more, that there's nothing to get, there's no levels, there's no liberation, and there is only just this, and there's no you. Yeah.
For me, it's attractive to play with more objects.
Yeah.
So the more concepts you give.
Of course it is. Yeah. For everyone. Because you want to be fed, you see. Because the person has to be fed. It's a continual feeding of the me. So this is totally hopeless. The apparent individual lives in hope. So the hope that John offers of liberation, Guru John, is very, very, very seductive. Because I feel like there's something missing, and I feel a yearning for wholeness, and I feel an unworthiness, and this, he's telling me how I can get there. And then I can even, there's steps to getting there, so the steps will show me I'm on the right path to getting there. And on it goes, and it's hilarious. And then it's like a closed loop. It just feeds on itself. It's like it goes around and around, and then it can be seen, start to become very obvious that there's nowhere to get to. And in that sense, then John's message starts to energetically fall apart, and it can happen very quickly. He's like, I've heard many times of people say this guy or that guy or the other guy, or this girl or that guy or the other girl, and it's like this, oh my God, it's amazing. Or if you want to say they had a spiritual persona, it's all amazing, and it fills them up, and it can very quickly fall apart, and it can be seen to be completely empty, just like that. Boom. There's just nothing in it anymore, because that sense of hope, it can just be sensed, that sense of constantly striving for something better around the next corner, it's constantly getting through the levels, it's just empty. And that sense of hope does not satisfy what's really been yearned for. And then when there's a clearer communication, it's a completely hopeless communication. So if there's an energy of living in a very hopeful energy, then this is going to be completely rejected. But when it resonates, it can start to be very obvious that of course it's hopeless, because how could it not be? Because it's just this. Because hope is a wish for something that is better than this. Do you see? Because this is why would you need hope when there's just this?
The flip side to that is when someone says there is no path or no hope, it usually gets misinterpreted as okay, that's something depressing, that's something sad.
I don't know. It can be. Yeah, it's interpreted anyway. It's a terrible message, though. It is sad. It's very sad for me. It's very, 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 very sad for me because there's no me. So it's a terrible communication for the me to be around. It's very dangerous, actually, for the me, because there's no me. There's just this. The me wants that hopeful, nice, positive. That's the dualism we spoke about. It doesn't want it to be that it is waking up with, it is the shitty feeling that's there when you wake up. It can't be the shitty feeling that's there when I wake up, because I've got to understand the shitty feeling, change the shitty feeling, do something about the shitty feeling, and make it not be there so that it's a good feeling. This is the loop of the person. This is the game. And all the while, life is not seen as it is. Boundless, unconditional love, stunning, just boom, as it is. It's not seen. And all the while it's not seen as it is, there's a searching, and it goes around and around apparently, and on it goes. And when there is nobody, it's seen, of course it's the shitty feeling. Well, how could it not be the shitty feeling? And therefore there's nobody working on the shitty feeling, trying to get the shitty feeling, understanding the shitty feeling, because it doesn't even matter. The shitty feeling it's not a thing to a separate thing that's there. There's no me who has a shitty feeling. There's just total aliveness, which is a shitty feeling, which is there and not there. It's not even that there's a shitty feeling that goes and then comes and then goes again, because it doesn't even come and go. Everything is just there and not there. And then that's the adventure of life as it really is, just absolutely stunning and unknowable and boundless and indescribable. It's just amazing and paradoxically so ridiculously simple that it can't ever be said. There's nobody who isn't already what they're seeking.
This has been a really wonderful communication. I feel like it was so clear and on spot.
It's stunning. The character Kenneth, you could say, this is a story as well, but it's continually stunned by the communication, because it's nothing to do with Kenneth. No, honestly, nothing whatsoever. It's the most remarkable. It's just, it's amazing. Yeah.
It's very clean.
Yeah.
And it's kind of it offers nothing.
No, it offers nothing whatsoever. It's so, yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this.
No problem.
And if people want to find out more about your meetings, they can go to Kenneth Madden.
Yeah, something like that, I think, is it? Kenneth Madden Non-Duality, or I'm so bad at all that stuff, so.
I remember it's Kenneth Madden.
You know more about my website than I do. I think so, yeah. It could be changed to Kenneth Madden Non-Duality, but anyway.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you for watching.